Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Ambient Bass Effects Afternoons. So, pretty much, just kind of playing through some ambient type effects and different bass type things as well. You know, what you just were listening to was a brand new capture that'll be available to you all. Let me make sure I got enough volume here. A brand new capture that'll be available to you all real soon on the tone. It's called a tone model, but have several new packs for you guys on the tone model side of the game. We're gonna have. Let me straighten this camera up here. It's a little better there. But brand new tone model packs that'll be available on the Patreon. You'll be able to find all this stuff. Make sure you hit that like button while you're here. Definitely helps me out a lot. Algorithm and all that good stuff. But yeah, brand new Tone X tone models. And if you're not familiar with the Tone X series stuff, it's amazing. Great modeling of it sounds identical, to most people's ears. The tone models sound identical to whatever, the majority of things that it's modeling. So that makes it a really good pedal for things like ambient music or just bass playing in general. So, yeah, I have this is my bass by itself. But when you add in that Tonix, and so that's actually the color box, which you see right here. If you can see my hand waving there, right, the little white box you see here, and the Jens Ben Shuttle 9. So it makes for a great, like a really punchy tone there. As you can see, it's plenty of clarity in there, but still has the punch of the JHS color box, and still has the tube, a bit of that tube warmth from the Shuttle 9, with that tube pushed just a little bit to give you a nice thicker sound with, of course, my EQ settings on both things there. So very nice. You can finger style. So, and that's just one of them. Of course, all the packs I have more than just one variation of that combination of the color box V2 and the shuttle Jens Benz Shuttle 9, which is that little amp back there. You probably can't even see it, but it gives me a perfect amount of saturation from the solid state of the two transistors in the color box, and which is like two 1073 style preamp, pretty much running into each other. And then with the two, oh, then I got my color box running into the Gensler Magellan preamp. And then, and that's with Couture B on, if you're familiar with the Gensler Magellan. It has a Couture A and Couture B, and Couture B is more boost that low mid range, cuts the highs and the mids just slightly. I only got it on about 25% plus my normal EQ. Just gives you a nice warm tone there. And, with the slap and pop, I use Couture A on 25%, which is like a mid scoop. So yeah, you can get some really nice with the color box in combination with other preamps. It gets really nice. You know what I'm saying? It gets really solid and shuttle. So, yeah, these are some of my favorite tone models right now. Of course, I got it loaded up with a bunch of different ones as well. Another color box and Jens Benz. Favorite auto wall? Well, I mean, if you mean like envelope filter or filter, I mean, I have a ton of different favorites. I don't have one of all time Can't give you that. But I like the filters in terms of filter pedals. And anyone you see up here on my pedal board, let me switch over here, you know, for other people can see. Um, so like I love the baseballs, the electroharmonics blurs, MXR bass envelope filter, the Spectrum covers a lot of stuff. Um, what else? Oh, I actually love the filters on these two pedals as well, the Enzo X and the Future Impact V4 VIP pop type thing. The MXR bass filter just works, you know what I'm saying? Where my volume go? As well as if you want to get a pedal, you don't want to use a whole slot on just a filter. You know, you can use the MS70 CDR Plus has some really good filters on it, but my favorite on there is gonna be the what's this? Oops, sorry. Yeah, and this is the what filter is this? That's the low pass filter on the MS70 CDR Plus. I also like the resonance filter on there. Sorry about that, got a little tangled up. The resonance filter works well. Let me see. But of course, I like that low pass filter the most on there. You know what I'm saying? It's a very Moog like filter. Also got a little swell vibrato on there right there. But in terms of actual bass ambient James, let me see what else I got. In terms of bass ambient pedals, the MS-70 CDR Plus is hard to beat, especially at the price point. It's ridiculous, for its price. Like, mind you, all these sounds on these different pedals that are have storable presets and all that stuff, I have preset packs for on my Patreon, and if you want to support the channel more. But all the sounds from the Enzo X, Future Impact, V4, and C4 synth, MS-70 CDR Plus, MS-60B Plus, and the Zoom B6. You can find and you can already find 11 different preamp packs for the Tone X1, but I'm coming out with 4 new packs for that. So that's what we were listening to a little bit ago. But this actual I even did little stuff like the Tone X doesn't do compression, but I wanted to get the tone, color, and EQ of this in combination with the Empress compressor, the color box, and I believe the Aguilar. I did all 3 of those together and got a great result, So, you got tons of options on the Patreon for different preamp packs. That's the color box and the AG preamp. That's with the bright on. Color box and the SGT. So really, with what's going on, either if I'm really ready to commit to a sound for a particular song, then I will. If I have the analog counterparts, I will use the analog counterparts. But I usually record direct. Just for my setup, if I'm sending it off to somebody, is different. So for my setup, if I'm recording, I can always go back and add these analog analog pedals to the recording, afterwards or whatever. And that way I can adjust things as I'm listening to the record versus playing it and then I got to go back and re EQ things. So sometimes I'll more than likely, if I have thanks to the Tonex, let's put it like this. Thanks to the Tonex stuff, I have copies of all my preamps, all these different preamp packs that are available on Patreon, right? For you to buy. You can go get one. But the Tonex software allows me to use it as a plugin. So all these different preamps that you were just listening to are available in my DAW at any time. I need them. So I don't have to record with the DIs on. Now I can also go back and use the pedals like an insert afterwards and reamp them, later if I felt like it if I have the dry recording. But once I have recorded everything on it, it's no going back. You know what I'm saying? So it's always best to kind of give yourself a little room there. Even going back recording it through the cabinet, you know what I'm saying, is something else that you can do. You can reamp through the color box or through the Tonex into a cabinet, and you'll still have your original DI signal and everything. So it's a lot of different ways you can do. Well, in terms of preamps, is nothing you can really. There's nothing that anybody can say in particular is the best. It really just goes on your sound. That's why I have so many of them where you can't really see. I have a Aguilar AG preamp. I have a Ampeg SGT, a Gensler Magellan preamp. You know what I'm saying? Technically, all the bass heads I have, those are preamps as well. And I got things like the color box. And what I will say is each brand has its own sound. So Ampeg has a sound, Aguilar has a sound, and Gensler has a sound. Like, these are different companies. Eden as well, Eden. I have an Eden WTDI down there as well. So all of them have different times when it might be better to use them, including things like the color box. Like for the color box, some people might find it a little not it might find it's a little too clean, like it doesn't color your sound enough for a lot of people. So some people don't really like it, especially if you're coming from something like an Ampeg. You're used to hearing that Ampeg sound on top of whatever your bass is doing. That's that gives you a little bit of a bias towards a particular preamp or not. Yeah, the Neve stuff is good. That's why, of course, the Color Box V2 is not a Neve preamp. It just emulates it, and kinda. It's not exactly the same, but for what it does. If you're not trying to make it what it's emulating, just use it for what it is. It's an amazing pedal, but because I'm even talking to you through it now. That's how versatile the Color Box is. You can play bass, you can play anything through it, vocals, horns, keyboards, whatever. And it's going to give you a nice sound. Like even now, this is an emulation. So that's actually a color box emulation there. I mean, well, tone model. That packs from the. I mean, that preset is from the pack that's on Patreon as well of the color box. You know, and so that even if I turn it off, you can hear the difference a little better. What it does. With it on. And that does sound just like the color box. Well, it's not meant to do everything. You can use the color box in a lot of different ways. Or Neve preamps in general. Um, a lot of it is for the saturation of the sound, what it actually sounds like. That just slightly adds a bit of saturation to it. You know, I personally think, to be honest with you, these days you can get a if you are not a big analog guy, or you don't care about analog versus digital, you get you a Tone X1, grab you some of my packs, and you'll be just fine. It's gonna literally nobody's gonna know the difference listening to that, versus the original pedal. It just they don't. Like I can barely tell the difference at all myself. I'll be lying if I say if when blindly I could hear the difference. Nice color box into the SGT B15. TC Electronic BH500, the original. What's going on, folks? Appreciate everybody chiming in, hanging out. It's gonna hit that like button for me while y'all here. Appreciate y'all. What's going on? this when TC Electronic had that real modern, like they were the one of the few companies that like just had that real modern bass sound. Then everybody always trying to get that vintage bass sound. Like every bass company doesn't need to have a vintage bass sound. Like I hate that. So yeah, they used to have that really hi-fi, you know, compared to and just like a massive bottom to it, like just so yeah, the TC Electronic stuff used to be fire, and you can't even get that head anymore. So, but you can get it if you got a Tone X1 or a Tone X pedal. You can easily get all these sounds. Yeah, that's not even too difficult. Like if you're gonna get one amp, that the difficult part is you're gonna have to get something that covers um that has enough power and is big enough. So you're gonna need something that's at least 300 watts. And I would recommend getting something. It really doesn't even matter because with the rest of the pedals that you would get would like it wouldn't even. It's going. You're gonna skip the built-in preamp anyway. The next two pedals would be Empress Tone X1 and the Source Audio Atlas, which is underneath here. You can't see it. Those three are going to give you, on the Source Atlas compressor, you can run that as 1176. Run that as like parallel compression there. You'll have to look up what parallel compression is. I run it at 10-1. And then from there, I run that in limiter into a LA2A emulation on there, but with no compression, so a 1-to-1 ratio, and just have it for color really. So just getting that tube, some of that tube saturation, tube compression saturation type thing. So that's actually what you're hearing. So this is just my bass. Here is the Atlas compressor added. So then, when you add in the Empress compressor, here's my bass dry again. With the Empress compressor and the Atlas compressor. Then you kick in the Tone X1, which is actually using the color box and other preamps together with these particular ones I'm about to show you. Let's see which ones I just do today. Where is it? And then, you can pretty much take that signal chain, that the Empress compressor, Tone X1 to Source Audio Atlas compressor, and you will run that through you will run directly into the Empress and then directly into the to the return of your effects loop on whatever power head you got. For instance, I have that Jens Ben Shuttle 9 head back there, right? So I've run directly into the receive. It has a send and a receive, or send and return, and I run directly into the return or the power amp in. It'll be sometimes it's labeled power amp in. And then basically what you're doing is bypassing the internal preamp of the pedal. Of the amp head, and you're able to use all these different tone models as pretty much the different preamps, because now you're using the power amp from the actual head, but you're using all the preamp coloring from the Tone X1 and the Empress and Atlas compressor. So if I want to go from that to that, or let's pick some dramatically different stuff. Thanks. I appreciate the sub. Always appreciate it. And the compliment. Thank you. See. Oh yeah. Well, I actually have a MIDI controller that I use to control a lot of these pedals that have MIDI. Like for instance, one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So eight of these pedals have MIDI capability. So I use that to do a lot of the switching. I don't even know what that means. I'm not reading that, but appreciate your commenting. So it's it's a thing of having, I don't really change this pedal order too much at all. For the most part, I might, swap out like the plethora for one of these two there, or I might do something like that's pretty much it. I just rearranged this whole setup here, so to have it exactly like this, because this is the order I need everything in to be functional when I'm writing and just be able to get right to things. So like for my normal gigs, this is my normal gigging bass pedal board right here, and this is just one plug. Each of these boards is one plug. So even if I was to take all three pedal boards, besides carrying them in, setting them up easy. I just plug them in three plugs. It's not hard, like But with most gigs, it ain't worth taking that much gear. You know what I'm saying? I want to minimize my risk, so taking something like the Tone X1, definitely saves, makes me a little bit more comfortable. And meaning I don't, instead of taking the color box and the Magellan, that's like 750 right there, or the color box and the SGT, that's like $800 right there, $900. Um, instead of taking that extra money there, I just take a Tone X1 and it's $179, and I never have to risk my analog stuff that I primarily only need in the studio. Nobody cares live. Live, that Tone X sounds perfectly fine, and even on the records, it sounds perfectly fine. It's a really good pedal, and it already has like a little chorus and stuff like that in there. So modulation, delay, and reverb, and compression and noise gate. So with the ability to make more tone models, meaning the ability to add more amps and the tone net. So and it comes with amplitude as well. So you're actually getting four pieces of software with it. That's a lot of support, and they're constantly updating it as well. So I can't recommend the Tone X1 enough at $150, $179, something like that. So I would recommend, if you don't have anything yet and you really need something along that lines, I would go with the Tone X1 and build around that, and and grab my tone models from my Patreon. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna save you a ton of money. The color box um, box is only like what 10. I think it's like $10, $15, but it's the only two settings. It's only like two settings in there because I only use two settings for my bass on my color box and things like that. So I also have um, extensive packs for things like the SGT, because it has like the SGT circuit of the B15, the SVT, then the analog preamp by itself. So that's a pretty extensive pack. Gensler and the AG preamp, all that stuff is on there. So that'll save you a ton of money. So yeah, you always need more than one note to play some bass. Like, if I only needed one note per song, I would never move from here. But and I love how it even models like how it reacts to the gain. It can get dirtier, or you can clean it up. So it really does react like the amplifier does, pretty responsive. And that's the original TC Electronic BH500 with the tube drive on it. You know, that tube drive used to hit different, boy. It got feel kind of watered down a little bit now, but it is what it is. Flat B Ampeg BA 210 V2. So yeah, that pretty much covers all your normal bass needs. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. But when you want to get fancy, you can add things like the Future Impact, and I got packs. The cool thing about today is, when you can get these packs from people. All the sounds you hear from me, and other artists that are on stuff, like a lot of us have packs and stuff. So yeah, it's so much stuff available for players now, man. It's not even funny. It's just so many things. But I will encourage you to understand, before you really start just buying stuff. Um, Make sure you understand when it's getting redundant. I mean, how many chorus sounds do you need, right? I buy units that typically have different emulations and then things like that. Things like chorus or modulations and delays and reverbs do not have to be analog circuitry. They can literally be digital and most of them are, and they sound amazing. Like The reverbs and the delays on the HX1 are amazing. So same thing for the MS-70 CDR Plus. That's $150. You're gonna get filters. You're gonna get um, delays, a bunch of delays, a bunch of reverbs, and a bunch of filters. Plus other things like a few little bass preamp type stuff like the bottom up or exciter in there. In the filter section, and it's got EQs in there as well. You know, it's the Enzo X has octavers and um, not just the synth stuff, but it has the modulations, delays, reverbs. Also has drives in there. Future Impact, same thing, except it doesn't have reverbs. But this allows you to have four oscillators that can have up to three different waveforms per oscillator. It's just so many options on here. This is an amazing pedal. It's got filters. These two have filters as well. Plethora X1. I like this for the chorus, the chorus, the tremolo. The delays are okay, and the reverbs. I love the reverbs on there. But stuff like that'll help save you some money from buying a million reverb pedals and this pedal and that pedal. A lot of the YouTubers you're seeing are getting paid or they're getting sent those pedals for free. It's much different than what I'm doing. I buy all this stuff so it means something to me. I'm not just, oh, somebody gave me something free. Let me talk about it. I don't do that. What I do is I go spend my money, and sometimes I spend you guys' money as a community. The money I get from YouTube, as well as the money that you guys send me on Cash App and Super Chats, I put that towards getting new pedals. Like one of the subscribers, he paid for half of the Future Impact just so I would get it because I wasn't really into the Future Impact until I got it in my hands and I really went through it. And I was like, oh, this is the best bass synth pedal ever. But that particular person really wanted to see the Future Impact have a good, somebody really concentrate on things. You know, that makes that makes for a much more honest community, a much more honest interaction with the fans. Like I don't have to try to appease the whatever company because the only company I'm looking out for is me, is my company. So and guess who are my customers? Guess who are my clients? Guess who are the people that patronize me? You guys. So I think it's only fair that I give you a honest review of things before you go spend your hard money. That's the whole purpose of you being here on my channel, is so that you can see what's going on with the pedal before you go and buy it and spend all that extra money. By the way, don't buy that Boss plug in, whatever that stupid thing. Don't buy that stupid thing. That is a ripoff. If I ever seen one, I don't even have one, and I did research on it, and I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Please do not get that Boss plug in, whatever it's little generic box looking thing. They didn't even have enough courtesy to make it look decent. At least the color box is white, but it looks nice. It almost looks like a flag. But that thing is ugly, and it's which one of those Boss vintage effects is that amazing that you know I tell you now, Zoom, the MS-70 CDR Plus has way better modulation emulations than the HX1. They're much more in depth, and they just sound better with less tweaking. Like as soon as you turn them on, they just instantly sound how you expect that pedal to sound if you were really listening to it. Like I did a shootout between the tri-chorus on the MS-70 CDR Plus, the HX1, and the actual TC Electronic tri-chorus that you can put on here, the actual algorithm that they have. And it sounds the exact same as the HX1 joint sounds completely weird. Like doesn't even sound nothing like it. The one on the MS-70 CDR Plus is spot on. So It just depends. Even the Plethora X1 is going to give you all the TC electronic pedals, you know. But yeah, it's back to what I was saying with in terms of buying the same thing over and over again. Let me see what we got here. Yes, there is a particular reason. Sometimes I'm just using. I want to be able to access waveforms. I bought both of these to review them, right, to see what the differences was. It's just I didn't send one back. I didn't send the Spectrum back in time, so that's why I ended up stuck with it. But I like to have this. All this has all my bass synth sounds in there. So I actually have a C4 synth pack that has I think it's like 47 bass synth sounds in there on that pack. So I have all that on here, and I have all the filters on here. Now, if I want to take this, I originally want this over here with the rest of the filters because this is a MXR bass envelope filter and Electroharmonics blurs, which is an amazing analog filter nobody ever talks about for some reason. The bass balls, right? So I wanted it over here, but the power supplies, only I use a True Tone CS12 on underneath each of these boards, and those are nine volt outputs each, right? So I can only do nine pedals, nine power pedals in each one situation. And this is not a pedal. This is my the CME H2 MIDI Pro, and this allows me to distribute MIDI throughout my board from the MIDI captain down here on the floor. It's a MIDI, one of the MIDI captain MIDI controllers on the floor, and that runs to here, and then this distributes it out to the USB as well as any other MIDI situation there. So, having that stuff becomes invaluable after a while, but you don't need a million chorus pedals. You don't need a million flanger pedals. Now, preamps are different. Preamps drastically change your sound. You know what I'm saying? In terms of what you will actually be doing as a bassist. So Ampeg sits in a mix differently than the Aguilar. So Aguilar for me, this is where I kind of use each situation. For my actual music and the bass stuff I like to use that color box into the Gensler Magellan. Now, when I go play a musical or or something like that, depending on what type if it's a rock musical, of course I'm gonna take the Ampeg SGT. So color box and the Ampeg SGT in terms of preamps. But um, if it's a jazz gig, I'm taking the Aguilar in place of that SGT. You know what I'm saying? So that's just how I kind of look at it. Like if I need all my most well-rounded preamp setup is going to be color box and the Gensler. That will literally work for any gig. But if I really want to get into the rock vibe, I'm gonna need something like a B15 SVT emulation on there where I can have a little bit of extra drive from that tube type thing, which I have all this stuff on my Tone X1 currently. But I'm just saying these are different ways. If I the different preamps would definitely help you out a little bit more just in terms of texture of your bass. But that and compressors, but I don't listen, I just like the Empress compressor. It works, it sounds amazing, and it's really adds a nice saturation to things. And the Source Audio compressor is Atlas compressor is um amazing for the same reason, even though it's digital. Does a great job compressing, but adds some nice saturation to things. Now I do have where is it? This TC Electronic Spectra Comp. I always like the compressor on that TC Electronic BH500 head. So I wanted to have a version of it that I could move around when I wanted. So if I bought this as my first compressor. So, you know, now is this still really good? Yeah. Can I still go back in and tweak and get things a little better? Yeah, but I like the Empress and the Source Audio Atlas better. So, but I couldn't things like that. I don't. You do want to have some sort of analog version of it because it just adds to the quality of it. Analog compressor running into the Tone X1 just makes things creamier. It just makes it, in my opinion, just makes it a little bit better. Without the Atlas, I mean, without the Empress, with it. Even doing parallel compression. So it just adds like a nice texture. You can hear even by itself. You could turn on that tone color with the Empress compressor, and it just go crazy. So yeah, the Empress is an amazing compressor. Even if you just wanted to run the Empress by itself in front of in your bass, you still good money. It's you great money. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure the engineers will love that. But If you want to have that amp sound to it. You even get that tube in it. That's why I like that Gen Shuttle 9, that color box running into that. Because it even, hear it just slightly breaking up. Ooh, get that tube in there. That's that real tube. Completely clean now, but can easily get dirty. Yeah, that the update they did to that Marlin is really nice on the Tonex. It is really nice. Like it's that is like perfect. It's warm. It sounds like the tube, like it actually is responding like the actual um preamp tube in there. So like it's if as I'm pushing the gain, it's breaking up more. As I'm bringing it back, it's bringing it back. It's just cleaning it up. So now, and things like that mean I don't have to have a million of versions of this same EQ, same pedal and amp setup. I can EQ it on the fly if I needed to as well. If I needed to bring back those lows a bit, or bring them up, or bring back some of the highs, depending on what if I'm moving around with using different gear and stuff like that, or different places. It makes a difference in terms of you're going to you're gonna. This the other thing I would say be careful of with gear. Um, Wow, we getting things like the Zoom B6. It's got different amps on there, the Tone X1 or the Valtone, Valtone, or Valtone, whatever that thing is called. Um, Valtone, I think it is. But or the Quad Cortex, whatever you may have, you know, you don't need to really switch amps every song. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I told somebody this the other day, I was like, how many amp models do you need on one gig? You only need probably about three. As a basis. You know what I'm saying? You need a dirty one, you need a clean one, and you need a slap and pop. You know what I'm saying? Finger style and slap and pop, pretty much. Those all require drastically different EQs. The finger style one, you can easily just adjust your bass and get it to do other things, like so for you could solo and different things like that. The the dirtier ones for songs that need overdrive or need a dirtier tone, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like how many if you're switching the preamp that much, it also you're switching your sound, like your actual, you know, it's a such thing as a signature sound. And while me playing through all of these sound like me, why not just choose between one of those for the gig? Like just whatever one you want to use for your rock stuff, with that cleaner Ampeg sound. SVT, TC Electronic, and Jen's bands. Get them all to be a little dirty. Figure out which one works best for the song. And then that'll make, you know, if you're gonna do all dirt sounds, that's fine. I mean, but pick, whatever you need. That sound, that bass sound, more than likely will work for other songs. Everything doesn't need to be the exact song sound of the record, and you need to play the exact Fender bass they played. I hate that crap. Listen, listen. If you work as a bassist all the time, you ain't doing all that. You not. You not. And if you're doing all that, stop it, because you're wasting your time. You could be practicing or doing something else, trying to recreate everybody else's tone and this and that all the time. If it's a stupid phaser on there, put a phaser that's close to it on there and go on about your business. Don't spend a whole bunch of time trying to buy all this different stuff to get it sound like the Beatles or sound like this one. Make sure you got the gear that allows you to sound like you. Okay? That is the most important thing. All this gear up here is so I can sound like me. Ain't none of this something I copied from somebody else. This is all things that I'm like, okay, this can enhance my writing or composition abilities. Not necessarily composition abilities, and then like I'm talking about like just my the sonic sounds that I'm hearing in my head, I'm buying things to get those sounds out. So I needed, I had a vocoder in my head, so I needed a vocoder pedal. I had strings and choir stuff in my head. So as soon as the Mel 9 came, I got that. I heard road sounds. Like I love an EP. You had to get that. I always loved the sitar sound. You needed that. I wanted to have an organ and be able to play guitar type stuff and synth type stuff. So I got synth pedals and a really nice octaver. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. Those change drastically alter my sound and like give me real options there. You having 10,000 of bass tones, only person that can hear that is musicians, and musicians don't buy music. They're not the consumer for you. I think that's very important that we stress that to the up and coming musicians that really gonna take this serious. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't spend all your time trying to please other musicians, because other musicians, they while we do hire each other, if you want to be a star, if you want to ever be your own boss and run your own band and run your own thing as an artist or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't spend all your time trying to sound like somebody else. You have to spend more time trying to sound like you than anything. Even while you playing covers and stuff. Like, I play in cover bands. I do wedding bands. I do all of that stuff. I got, I spent time getting little, little Michael Jackson in there. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I spent some time doing it now. Like, so I can. I already spent, got all that stuff on here. That luckily. Or, man in the mirror. So, I do spend some time, getting different sounds I might want in my arsenal. But trust and believe, it's not just for one song. I got those sounds together. One, because I sell preset packs, so I know it'll make you guys life a lot easier for sounds like that if you already have it in the pack and you don't have to sit down and do it. Now you can spend more time playing. That's the purpose of buying the packs. But um, yeah, it's not. It shouldn't be your primary thing though. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be your primary thing to sound like somebody else or want to be somebody else. You should always want to be you. You're you could be the best bassist in the world, but you'll never know it until you can even say it out your mouth that you want to be the best bassist in the world. Not the best bassist you can be. I mean, that's too. You want to be that too, but I think it's a lost thing now where a lot of musicians are just so get along. Like, I just want everybody to like me, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers. And if I say I'm the best, then what does that mean for everybody else? I mean, they second. What you want me to tell you? My name is the Bass Nagas. It's my name. I don't play when it comes to stuff like that. But I say that because I want you all to always approach things with confidence. Approach it with your intention to be the best, even if it doesn't pan out that way for whatever reason. You know, never do anything and expect to not win. Like, that's insane. Like, it's a lot of that trophy culture these days. Everybody get a trophy, but don't be afraid to say you want to be the best. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't say it, you, first of all, you will be the first person to say it. If you can't say it and say it out your mouth, nobody else fixing to say it. That's the hard part about it in life. You got to be willing to say, I want to be the best. I'm going to put in the work to be the best. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to put in the miles, whatever it may be. I'm going to, do my best to put a real effort into doing it and put a champion effort into it. Like, you look at what everybody else is doing only to say, y'all pulling hours like that. Well, I need to make sure I'm staying pulling my hours and things so I can keep up, especially when you're in a band. Nobody like to be, you don't want to be the least talented person in the band. And really, when we say talent, we really mean skill. Nobody wants to be the least skilled person in the band. You know, you only can do songs as I hate this with a passion. Like, we are the foundation. We are the actual thing of the song, bro. Like, we don't the song don't even start to the bass player play. How would you start telling them, man? Like, don't let them make you feel like you are just Mr. Background or Miss Background. You can't be out front. You can't be a star. You can absolutely be a star. You, you can be a star. You got to decide that that's what you want to be. You can be the best. You got to decide that's what you want to be. If you want to be the best at bass, electric bass, you got to come through me, and I ain't letting up. So that means you got to put in them hours. You know what I'm saying? And it's not a mean competition. Like, if you notice, I love teaching. I teach. Part of my living is teaching, and helping kids get scholarships. And I got students, Berkeley, Juilliard, New School of Music, all that good stuff. But what's most important is that I'm helping some. The same way, if a boxer, boxing, or if you went up to an MMA fighter, use some common sense, But I say that to say, people will tell you as soon as you start saying you the best. It's gonna be those people that's gonna tell you you're not. As soon as you start believing in yourself, it's gonna be people telling you not to believe in yourself. Like, well, you just a guy down the street. You ain't got. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about none of that. That's just noise. Understand that you will be whatever you decide that you want to be. As long as you put that best effort forward, things can move forward. You know what I'm saying? So, even with this YouTube game, you know what I'm saying? It ain't, it's not always peaches and roses, just because I'm on YouTube doing something. And, of course, I would like my channel to grow faster, but I got to do the work. I got to keep going. Just because it happened faster for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to happen the same time for me. Just like I was able to play at 4. I started playing when I was 4, and I'm 36 now. So that's 32 years of playing music. That's a really long time. So don't look at it like, oh, he's so far ahead. No, I've been doing this a really long time. But you can easily come in and get your rocks off on the bass. You know what I'm saying? Come in and just, what I'm saying? Go hard on them. You know what I'm saying? And don't let up. The hard part is not letting up. Because in 32 years, I've maybe taken off 6 months in total, all together. I've never taken off more than a week because, especially as I became an adult, because I'm doing it for a living. But I've never taken off more than a week. Not saying that you shouldn't. If you hurt or something like that, he'll rest up, get back to it, and put in that grind. Do not think it's going to happen out of nowhere. So that's my little motivational speech for today. Get up and grind, get some practice hours in. A good way to get a lot of practice hours in, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, that's 4 hours. That's 4 hours. That would be, if you can squeeze something in at lunch, or whatever, if you're in high school or something like that, all always make sure you got a band class, because even if you're not playing bass in that ensemble, if you're playing a different instrument, trombone or saxophone or whatever, it's just going to teach you a different part of music. So I spent a lot of times in ensembles not playing bass before I ever played bass. So um, spend some time on different situations and understand that it's all a journey, and everybody's journey looks different. Some people are fast starters, some people slow starters. At the end, it just depends on the type of person that you are. But let me see what we got here. Got some folks over on Twitch. Oh, okay. Let me see. Yes, I can play by ear. I can read music. I went to Berkeley College of Music myself. I actually went to Bowie State and had a full ride um, to Bowie State, and then transferred to Berkeley College of Music on the third highest scholarship while I was there. And that's pretty much the collegiate background, But to be honest with you, you want to be able to play going into college. You don't want to be getting to college. The only way to get a full ride to college is to um, already be able to play before you get there. That's one of the things I help kids do. I teach with a nonprofit called Fame, which is the Foundation for Advancement of Music and Education here in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. So if you got any younger kids that's high school and middle school age and they want a good program, I personally am handling the curriculum and different things like that for stuff. So it's going to be everything they need to get them going for scholarships and everything else. But back to my original point, you want to be ready. You want to be, when you go to audition, you want to go in being able to play and sight read, play decently by ear, and have two contrasting pieces that really are highest level as you can obtain. So basically, so I chose a classical piece and I chose a jazz piece typically. So when I was originally auditioning for college, I did a ragtime piece, a Scott Joplin piece. My first full ride for music was for piano and trombone. So I auditioned on piano and trombone for the college I ended up going to. No, I actually auditioned on piano and sax, and then found out they needed more trombones. And I was like, if you give me a little extra bread, I'll play trombone. And I auditioned on trombone. You know, I was already in, I already had a full ride. But, did you know they'll pay you to go to school? Did you know that? They'll send you money back every semester. You're good enough. Between your financial aid and everything else and a full ride, if it's over the bill, they send you that check. They send you that check. You know what I'm saying? So, I got paid to go to college, for real, for real. When I was at Bowie State, at least. At Berkeley, a little different story. Berkeley's a lot more expensive. So it was more so, Berkeley was more so a thing of, I had the third highest scholarship, so school was completely paid for, but I still had to take care of room and board and food, all that type of stuff. But they didn't have all the dorms they have now. They got all these dorms now, but we had to live off campus and find roommates, and I didn't even know anybody in Boston or anywhere near Boston, so I just happened to meet somebody in the financial aid office. It all worked out. So sometimes you got to go even when you don't know where you're going to stay. I was up that joint for a week, homeless in a hotel, trying to figure it out, boy. But, I also used my networking skills and just was talking to folks as I was walking around the school, and I found me a place to stay. I wasn't playing with them. But the hardest part when it comes to getting yourself together as a musician is knowing what you don't know. Because nobody, it's hard to know what you don't know already. So, that's why you got to constantly keep practicing, keeping your ears open, keeping your ears open for knowledge, not just the music. Because a lot of people want to just hear the music and don't want to ever have to look at a book or sit down and really study what something means and get in, if you want to be the best or you want to get better instantly, get deeper into the knowledge side of things. Your hands are already strong enough to play the instrument. You're already playing it. Which was not strong enough is up here. It ain't your hands. My hands actually, I'm still recovering with my hands. That's why I played with the glove for a little bit. But, it ain't that's all knowledge. That's all C major scale. But how are you able to manipulate it? What you can do with it makes a difference. Even when you're playing ambient music and different, jazz or classical, your technical abilities are different than your actual knowledge. So I always tell people it's two parts to music. There's the music theory and the actual. When I say music theory, I don't mean just read music. I mean um all of it, like the emotional side of it, the knowledge side of things that aren't, you know, um, that aren't physical, things that you just need to know. Then there's the actual physical stuff, like the actual execution, the technique. So when I'm playing fingerstyle, if you notice, let me see. So when I'm hitting the strings, I'm doing that the same way every single time, especially in my right hand. That's a technique. Fingerstyle is a technique. Slap and pop, double thumb. It's a technique. Harmonic, false harmonics. All those are techniques. That's different than music theory, the knowledge, or jazz theory, the knowledge of what scales are, where chords come from, and where they occur, motifs, phrases, dynamics. That's all knowledge based things. You know what I'm saying? So there's the physical part, and then there's the mental part. And when you start to wrap your mind around that, you'll instantly start to grow faster. Now start think of your mind like this as well. Um, everything. Think of your mind like there's boxes that are connected. So in the C, and say you just take the note C, everything that's associated with that note C is in a box, along with like, say you have a C major chord, right? C major chord occurs in multiple keys. So you got those two scales. That's all in the box, and every way that you can manipulate those two scales, that's all in the box. Not to mention the pentatonics you can play on that stuff is all in that box, and everything else. Not to mention each one of those scales has its own box and everything else and so forth. And so it just starts to be a bunch of boxes that are all connected in places that you can go, things you can execute. So, over time I don't have to think about doing a scale in thirds. I don't have to think about. I can just go. Yeah, I don't have to think about every individual note, or um, it's more so it's all within these different boxes of things that I've practiced. Me practicing slowly, multiple octaves. I actually do that 4 octaves. Doing things slowly is how you get to doing them fast. And I know this ain't really, the title of this, giving out bass lessons advice, but this is, you know, sometimes I just like to help folks. So doing it slowly is going to allow you to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? As quickly as you want to, but you got to know it, what it is, how to manipulate it, and I always suggest learning it forwards and backwards. Backwards, we call that retrograde. So instead of we going, so we're just reversing the pattern. So that's all within that C major scale box. So it's you think of things like they're in a box in your mind. You got unlimited storage of all these different boxes and things that are connected. By a web. You know what I'm saying? It's I don't try to I try to make it so um I have all the tools I need to be as creative as I want to be. So meaning like I need all these different variations of the major scale, doing them in fifths, and not just the increments. So not just the 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, but doing the intervals and the retrograde of each one of those patterns. So forth and so on. Fourths, fifths, sixths, seven, so forth and so on, and the retrograde of those patterns. So doing things like that, and of course I'm gonna do a bass. I'm still working on my bass course. This is really difficult. Still working on my bass improvisation course. Well, it's several courses: a music theory course, bass technique course, and then there's going to be my patent pending improvisation system, which is going to allow you to solo and write melodies and sight read better and just understand music as a whole a million times better without sending you through a million hoops to get there. It won't. I don't do none of that fluff stuff. Oh, you just gotta feel it, and you know it'll come to you if you listen to enough and you do enough nothing but one. I've never actually done any by ear. I've only played 2 transcriptions my entire career. But it's not about doing transcriptions and stuff. Transcriptions only show you what that player used, what tools they used at the particular time that they use them. It doesn't show you or ingrain those tools into you to where you can just pull them out like they did in the improvisation setting or sight reading. That's the other part of sight reading people miss. Even if you can read it, if you can't play it, you don't have the physical way of playing it, then you can read it, but you can't execute it. So, you know, there's those 3 different types of courses I'll be offering as well. So check all that stuff out. But those of you that hung out with me till now, I definitely appreciate you. Make sure you head over to the Patreon, support the channel there. $1, $5 a month, or help with the pedal reviews a little bit. Or if you would like to buy some of the preset packs, for these different pedals, check it out there. Um, if you want to check out my music, allbasscreations.bandcamp. And if you want to send a brother a little something, Cash App is always open. You know what I'm saying? So, but I definitely appreciate y'all hanging with me. I'm also going to start offering a limited amount of lesson slots. So, you'll be able to have a once a month video one on one with me, but I'm going to do a very limited amount of those. So, I'll let you guys know when I put that up on the Patreon, and then you can actually have a one-on-one on either, it could be bass, it could be music theory, improvisation theory, it could be helping you set up your effects, situation, whatever you need. I'm gonna be here for it, and we're gonna make it happen. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But this has been another episode of All Bass Creations, Effects, Tutorials, Demos, and Review. I am the Bass Nagus. I truly appreciate all you guys hanging out with me today. It means the world to me that any of you guys have spent time hanging with me. So make sure you hit that like button and make sure you subscribe. I definitely appreciate all the love and all the shout outs and all the everything else that I've been getting on my different social media stuff, or people messaging me about the preset packs. Thank you. All the people that support the channel, buying preset packs, thank you. Everybody on Patreon, thank you. So I'll catch you guys later. Peace.